Welcome to Storytime. Enjoy with me.
Happy New Year, by Kathy Burke.
"600 years ago, on a cold winter's night, Mrs. Ye sat alone in her living room, waiting for her husband, Mr. Ye, to return. He had been gone for almost a year, teaching in a private school about 70 kilometers away. Mrs. Ye was looking forward to seeing him. She also needed the salary he had earned for his year of work. All the money he had left her was now gone, and New Year's Eve was approaching, a very special but expensive holiday. New Year's Eve dinner was the most important meal of the year, even more important than New Year's Day. The Chinese believed that a New Year's Eve dinner with plenty of delicious, healthy food would start the year well and bring them happiness and wealth. A typical New Year's Eve meal included 4 wholes: a whole chicken, a whole duck, a whole fish, and a whole leg of pork, and 4 kinds of cold meat. Then there was also a sweet rice dish with 8 different things in it, and the 8 specials, which is made of 8 different kinds of vegetables and beans. The New Year's holiday lasted for 15 days, and if people could afford it, they cooked enough food for the whole 2 weeks. This allowed them to relax and visit relatives and friends without having to think about cooking. But more importantly, it showed other people that they were wealthy enough to buy all this food. So this time of year was important for everyone's pride. Mrs. Ye began to worry, as she had expected her husband home hours ago. She tried not to think about possible disasters that could happen on a winter's night like this, with the terrible snow and ice. At last she heard footsteps coming along the path. She hurried to open the door, and there, shaking the snow off his cap, was her husband, Mr. Ye. Mrs. Ye gave her husband a bowl of hot soup to drink by the fire. Later, when he finally felt his body warming from the fire and the soup, she asked him about his salary. "Well, was it a good year?" "Yes, it was. I earned a silver yan pao," he answered. "Oh, thank Buddha! Now we can enjoy our New Year's Eve dinner. So where is this silver yan pao? Let's put it in the money pot, and I'll make some tea." Mr. Ye hesitated, and then said quietly, "Well, there's one small problem." "What problem?" his wife asked. "I gave it away," he answered. "What? Oh, old man, don't joke with a poor old woman after a hard year. Where is the yan pao? Give it to me." "I'm afraid I'm not joking," Mr. Ye said in a serious voice. "Please bring me some hot tea, and I'll tell you what happened." He then sat there warming his hands on his teacup. "It all started when I was walking along the road. I was feeling very happy that I was coming home." And so he began his story. It was freezing cold, and he had to pull his old coat up around his face to help keep out the cold wind. But he was happy, too, because in his bag he had his silver yan pao. He was sure that his wife had used all the money she had and was waiting for rice to put into the pot, as they say in China. He couldn't wait to get home and see the joy in her eyes when he gave her the silver yan pao. He was also happy because it was almost New Year's Eve, his favorite holiday. As he walked along, he started to plan the menu for the New Year's Eve dinner. He knew that they would probably not be able to buy 4 wholes, but at least his wife could get some pork and cook his favorite meal, pork with red wine and red beans. He would get out his favorite rice wine to have with it. Suddenly, as he was walking along thinking these happy thoughts, he saw a woman running toward the river. He was sure she was going to throw herself in. As he struggled to see better through the falling snow, he realized it was Ah Ken Sao, the wife of the carpenter Ah Ken. He rushed forward to stop her, and just managed to catch her in his arms before she got to the water. "Let me go, please," she cried. But he refused. "You can't end your life like this. What is it? What's wrong?" "Let me die, please," cried Ah Ken Sao. "I haven't heard from Ah Ken for a whole year. He's either died or left me, but I must pay the rent by tomorrow. If I don't, the owner of the building is going to sell our daughter, Yang Hua. But I have no money. I can't pay the rent. There's nothing I can do." "No, you're wrong. Ah Ken did write to you," said Mr. Ye. He was thinking hard. Ah Ken Sao stopped struggling. "Oh, do you have a letter for me then?" Well, said Mr. Ye. He let go of her and pretended to search in his pockets. After a minute, he smiled and apologized. "Sorry, I thought I had a letter. I'm sure there was a letter." "Oh!" cried Ah Ken Sao, and she started to run toward the river again. Mr. Ye shouted, "No, wait! I was confused. I made a mistake. Ah Ken didn't give me a letter, but he did send some money for you." He took his silver yan pao out of his bag, looked at it one last time, and gave it to Ah Ken Sao. She stopped and looked down for a quiet moment at the silver yan pao in her hand. A wide smile appeared on her face, and then she began to laugh. "Oh, my husband is alive and hasn't forgotten us, and our daughter has been saved. Thank Buddha," she cried happily. "And thank you too, Mr. Ye. I must go to my daughter. Thank you. Thank you so much." She was crying again now, but with happiness, as she ran away down the road. Watching her, "I knew I'd just given our New Year's Eve dinner away," Mr. Ye told his wife, who was sitting opposite him at their table. "But what could I do?" Mr. Ye was very depressed. "But why did you give Ah Ken Sao all your money?" Mrs. Ye asked. "Why didn't you save some for us?" "I had only one yan pao. I told her that this yan pao was Ah Ken's salary, which he'd asked me to give her." Mrs. Ye became angry. "But what's going to happen to us now? Do we have to die of hunger because of your kindness? You must do something. We need food. I want you to ask our friends and neighbors for the same kindness. Go and borrow some money for our New Year's food." Mr. Ye knew he couldn't refuse his wife, so he did as she asked. The next morning, he went out to ask their neighbors if he could borrow some money. He knew that New Year's Eve was the worst time to do this. People were busy cooking dinner, and they believed that people who borrowed money could bring them bad luck in the new year. Almost every door was shut in his face. Finally, one man gave him a small package, but when he opened it, he discovered that it was only stones wrapped in some paper. Tired and disappointed, Mr. Ye went home and told his wife he had failed. "I'm exhausted," he said. "Let's go to bed and not think about dinner. We have nothing to eat anyway. I'll try to think of something in the morning." But his wife was too hungry to sleep. "No, you have to do something," she told him. "I have an idea. The fields are full of big sweet potatoes at the moment. Why don't you get some of those?" "But those potatoes don't belong to us. Those aren't our fields," Mr. Ye replied. "So?" "What? You want me to steal? Well, let's say borrow. I want you to borrow some potatoes from the fields." "But, dear, I can't do this," Mr. Ye replied. "Oh, but you can let us die of hunger," his wife shouted. Then she started to cry, as she had never cried before. And so, finally, Mr. Ye agreed to borrow some sweet potatoes.
To be continued.